Hi, my name is Mackenzie Caruso, and today I'm going to be talking about preventions and policies for youth homelessness. The goal of this presentation really is to bring attention and identify the policies and preventions to keep youth out of the juvenile justice system. The more youth we keep out of the system, the less youth homelessness we'll see because they really correlate and overlap each other. So just some statistics on youth homelessness. Every year about 100,000 youth exit the juvenile justice system. Half of that 100,000 youth that are exiting, half of them will be homeless within 6 months because they're just not ready to live independently and on their own, and no planning has been made for them when they do exit. So a study that was done in 11 cities reported that 44% of homeless youth had stayed in a jail, prison, or juvenile detention center. Of that 44%, 78% of them said that they had some kind of interaction with law enforcement, the court system, at some point in their lives. And then 2 studies that were done in California found that 25% of youth exiting the juvenile detention, group homes, or foster care, they stayed on the street the first night that they had exited either of those systems. So basically what that's saying is there was no plan for them to go stay at home or in a center, like even a homeless shelter. Instead of having somewhere to stay, they just stayed out on the streets. Another study that was done in Minnesota found that 46% had been in a correctional facility, talking about their homeless youth, and 44% of those exited into an unstable housing situation. In 2015, Washington State found that only 65% of minors in detention thought they had a parent or relative that they could live with when they were released. And 48% of youth in juvenile detention in Washington said that they had been homeless even before entering the juvenile justice system. So really, something that comes back around again that you're going to see a lot is the unstable housing situation that a lot of youth face that are entering the juvenile justice system. They're facing it before and after that they are involved with the system. So preventions for system-involved youth. For youth that are involved in the system, appropriate planning needs to be established for their re-entry into society. So we need to make a plan for them. What's going to happen after they leave the system. It's fundamental for the success of the juvenile. And a quote that I found from the Coalition for Juvenile Justice, I like it a lot. It says, becoming homeless is also too often the result of courts that do not ensure that foster children and juveniles who are placed outside their home have transition and reentry planning that is expected from federal child welfare legislation and national juvenile justice policies. And what that's saying is no one is planning or really helping to plan what's going to happen when the juvenile leaves the justice system. There's no planning that's being done. They're just being thrown out with no help whatsoever. So prevention, early intervention is something huge. Early intervention is the most crucial to keep the youth from even entering the juvenile justice system. It's a good financial investment. We're not going to be spending money on youth being in the juvenile justice system, and it also prevents that youth from growing up and entering the criminal justice system, which is a huge amount of money that you spend on one person a year. Youth development is really huge, so positive youth development addresses different aspects of a youth's life. Work, education, relationships, community, health, and creativity. Helping a youth develop the skills that they need to be successful in all those aspects is really what kind of intervention you need to do. Youth need to have 2 key assets, which is learning and doing and attaching and belonging. So as advocates, we need to teach them how to do certain things, how to be an adult. They learn that by doing it. and they need to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of attachment. They need to have good role models. If their parents aren't in their life, we need to give them that sense that they have a family, have someone to attach to even. So some effective programs for prevention, and this also goes into early intervention, are after-school rec programs, mentoring programs, again, having someone to look up to is really important, classroom and behavior management, conflict resolution, violence prevention programs, school or organization programs, and bullying prevention organizations are huge as well. And then over here you see Maslow's hierarchy pyramid. These are just things that every human being needs. I got this one from Rawhide Programs, which is a youth development program in, I believe, Wisconsin. And for example, to build self-esteem, they say they'll do therapy, use sports, education, community service to build a youth's self-esteem. Re-entry planning is another huge point that needs to be made. Successful re-entry programs and practices should ensure the delivery of prescribed services and supervision in the community. So having a juvenile probation officer who oversees the youth that has left is critical. So we know what they're up to and if they need help while they're out. Youth leaving a detention center, they need help fostering improved family relationships, functioning reintegration into school, get them back into the school system they were in, or maybe help them get their GED, and just mastery of independent life skills, just teaching them how to be an adult really is what it comes down to. Factors that should be considered when planning for reentry, they include families, so do they have a family to go home to, do they not, what can we do for them? Substance abuse, do they need to keep going to meetings to stay clean? Peer association and friends, school conflict, and then mental, behavioral, and physical health. Are they mentally well enough to go be on their own? Do they need to go get mental help? Where can we get that for them? I'm sure they probably can't afford it, so where can we get them free mental health help? So some U.S. policies that address youth homelessness. The Runaway and Homeless Youth Act was administered in 1977. It was the first one to be enacted, and today it remains the sole federal program that's used by homeless youth. It authorizes community-based runaway and homeless youth projects to provide temporary shelter and care to runaway or otherwise homeless youth who are in need of temporary shelter, counseling, and aftercare services. So this gives them a place to go to if they have nowhere else to go. This will provide them with their basic needs. The Homeless Children and Youth Act of 2011 was enacted to ensure homeless youth coverage until the age of 21. This is a really big one because most people think you're an adult by 18, but you're not. So this helps, it helps youth still be able to get the help they need even after they turn 18, which is really, really nice, which I think should be honestly extended till you're 25, but that's my personal opinion. The McKinney-Vento Act of 1987. This act is in regards to homeless youth's right to education. It requires states to review and revise residency requirements for the enrollment of homeless children and youth to address the challenges that they face in enrolling, attending, and succeeding in school. So I think this is a good one because for a lot of schools, you need to have an address in a certain district to even get into the school. So this gives homeless children the right to get into whatever school they need to be in, really. It provides immediate enrollment even without their school records, so they don't need to go to another school to get their records, transfer them over. They can just enroll right away. It's their right to remain in the school of origin, and they even have the right to get transportation to the school that they need, because obviously if they're homeless, they most likely don't have a car to get to their school. So this is a really good act because it helps them a lot. And then the opportunities to help youth, there are always more opportunities to help, which the first one would be funding more research to acquire better data. This will help advocates, researchers, teachers, courts of law better understand the correlation that is youth homelessness and the juvenile justice system, because there's obviously a huge correlation between the two. Provide training for law enforcement and court staff. Again, help them understand that there is a correlation. For law enforcement especially, do you need to arrest them? Is that the only option that you have? Throwing them into the juvenile justice system really is not going to help them in the long run. Number 3 is develop more preventions and diversion programs, education and employment programs. Because as a youth coming out of the system, it's overwhelming. You don't know what to do next. And having employment programs will help them get jobs instead of going into survival mode. Advocate for change on a small scale. Everyone can do that. You don't have to have a degree to do that. And partner with youth who have experienced this crisis firsthand. Have them tell their stories. Put them in leadership roles. Having them tell their stories will help other people understand what position they were in, what got them into the juvenile justice system, and just help people better understand where a lot of these youth come from and how they could even help. So that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.